Morning. Today is Thursday, January 16th, and we'll be reading Genesis 42 through 44.
42 through 44. Are you ready?
Yeah,
You have your stories that you're covering, and you have Genesis. All right, let's get started, because it's 3 chapters. Joseph's brothers go to Egypt. When Jacob learned there was food in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why are you standing around here staring at each other? I hear there is grain in Egypt. Go there and buy some for us so we don't all starve to death." So Joseph's 10 half-brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's full brother Benjamin with him, because he feared something might happen to him. So Israel's sons were among those who went to Egypt to buy grain, for the famine in the land of Canaan was severe. Now Joseph was the governor of the land of Egypt, which meant he supervised the sale of grain to all the people. One day, Joseph's 10 brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces on the ground. As soon as Joseph saw them, he realized that they were his brothers. But he pretended he didn't know them and spoke to them harshly. "Where do you come from?" "From the land of Canaan," they answered, "and we're here to buy food." Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they had no clue that it was Joseph speaking to them. Then, at once, Joseph remembered the dreams he had about them bowing down before him. Pausing, he said to them, "You are spies. You've come to see where our land is weak." His brothers replied, "No, master, we've come to buy food. We, your servants, are honest men. We'd never think of spying. We're blood brothers, sons of one father." Joseph interrupted, "No, you are spies who have come here to find our weakness." "We are your servants," they insisted. "We were 12 brothers. Our youngest brother remained behind with our father, and one brother, well, he is no more." Joseph said to them, "It's just as I said. You are spies. And here is how I'll test you. Unless your younger brother comes and presents himself here before me, then as surely as Pharaoh lives, you shall not depart from here. One of you must go and bring me your brother, while the rest of you will remain here in confinement. This way I will test your words to see if the story that you have told me is true. If not, as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are spies." He placed them all in prison together for 3 days. Joseph tests his brothers. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "Do as I say, and you will live. I am a man who respects God. If you are as honest as you say you are, then I will keep just one of your brothers here in confinement, while the rest of you carry grain home for your starving families. You must return with your youngest brother so that I may verify your story, and that you may not die." So they agreed to do so. With Joseph standing there, they began to speak among themselves, saying, "Look what's happened to us. We're being punished for what we did to Joseph long ago. We heard his cries of anguish and saw the agony of his soul when he begged us for mercy, but we turned a deaf ear. That's why all this trouble has come upon us." Then Reuben spoke up, "Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. So now we're paying the price for his murder." They had no clue that Joseph understood every word, for he had been speaking to them through an interpreter. Deeply affected by what he heard, Joseph began to weep and hurriedly left their presence. After he had composed himself, he returned to them and pointed to Simeon, said, "This one will remain here." Then he had him tied and bound while they all watched. Joseph then gave orders to have their bags filled with grain, to hide each man's money back inside his sack, and to give them provision for their journey home. After this was done for them, they loaded their donkeys with the bags of grain and departed. Joseph's brothers returned to Canaan. Later they camped for the night, and as one of them opened their sacks of grain to feed his donkey, he discovered that his money was right there on top of the grain. He shouted to his brothers, "My money! Look, someone put my money back in my sack." Troubled and trembling, they said to each other, "What in the world has God done to us?" When they came to their father Jacob in Canaan, they told him the story of all that happened to them, saying, "The governor of Egypt spoke harshly to us and accused us of being spies. We told him, 'We are not spies, but honest men. We're 12 brothers, sons of our father. Our youngest remained with our father in the land of Canaan, and one is no more.' Then the man, the governor of Egypt, demanded, 'By this test I will discern if you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me. Take the grain you need for your families, and be on your way. Return to me with your youngest brother. Then I'll know you are not spies, but men of integrity. Then I'll release your brother back to you, and you'll be free to trade in the land.' As they each emptied their sacks of grain, each man found his money inside his sack. When they and their father saw their money returned to them, they were frightened. Their father Jacob said to his sons, 'You have taken away my children. First Joseph is gone, and now Simeon, and now you want to take Benjamin from me. Everything is against me.' Then Reuben said, 'Father, you may put my 2 sons to death if I fail to bring Benjamin back to you. Trust me, I will bring him back.' Then Jacob replied, 'I can't tell my son Benjamin, go with you, for his brother is dead, and of Rachel's sons, he alone is left. If he were to meet with disaster on your journey, I would die of grief. You will send my white hair and broken heart sorrowing down to the grave.'" Chapter 43. Joseph's brothers returned to Egypt with Benjamin. Now the famine in the land continued to grow more severe. When all the grain had been brought from Egypt was almost gone, their father said to them, "Go back and buy us more food." But Judah objected. "The Egyptian warned us repeatedly, 'You will not see my face again unless Benjamin is with you. We'll only go if you'll let our brother come with us. If you insist he remains here, we won't go. For the man solemnly told us, you will not see my face again unless your brother is with you.'" Israel demanded, "Why did you make it so hard for me by telling the man you had another brother?" They answered him, "The man interrogated us about ourselves and our family, saying, 'Is your father still living? Do you have another brother?' We had to answer his questions. We had no idea he would say, 'You must bring your brother here to me.'" Then Judah spoke up and said to Israel, "Father, I promise to guarantee his safety for my life. You can hold me personally responsible if I don't return with him. I'll bear the blame before you for the rest of my life if I fail to bring him safely back to you. You have my promise. Entrust him to my care, and let us be on our way, so that we all don't die of starvation. We and you and all our children, we will live and not die. And besides, if we hadn't delayed so long, we could have gone and returned twice by now." After considering their words, their father Israel said to them, "If that's the way it has to be, then do this. Load your donkeys with the very best gifts you can find, choice products of the land, and offer them to the man. Take some balm and some honey, spices and myrrh, pistachio nuts and almonds. Take double the money with you. Give him back the money that was returned in the top of your sacks, for it may have been a mistake. Take your brother too, and be off. Go back to the man at once. May the God who is more than enough grant you mercy and favor before the man, so that he may send back both Simeon and Benjamin. As for me, if I suffer loss, then let it be so." So the brothers set off for Egypt and took double the money, the many gifts, and Benjamin. Once they arrived, they presented themselves before Joseph. Joseph prepares a feast for his brothers. When Joseph saw his brother Benjamin with them, he said to his chief servant, "Bring the men to my house and make them feel at home. Butcher an animal and prepare a meal, for these men are to dine with me at noon." Joseph's chief servant did as he was told and brought the men to Joseph's house. Now the brothers were very apprehensive as they were being led inside, and said to each other, "He brought us here because of the money that was put back in our sacks the first time we came to Egypt. He's looking for an opportunity to arrest us, turn us into his slaves, and take away our donkeys." So they approached the chief servant and spoke to him at the entrance of the house. "If you please, my lord," they said, "we came here once before to buy food, but on our way home, when we camped for the night, we opened our sacks. We found each one's money in the top of his bag. All our money was there in our bags. We know it must have been an oversight of some kind, and we have no clue who put it there. So we have brought it all back with us. Plus, we have additional money to buy more food." "Relax," he replied. "Don't be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, must have been the one who put treasure in your bags. I have received your money. It's all accounted for." Then the chief servant brought Simeon out to them. Then he gave feed to their donkeys and brought the brothers into the house. He gave them water to drink and washed their feet. The men laid out their gifts to present to Joseph, for they were told he would appear before them at noon and would dine with them. When Joseph came home, they presented to him the gifts they had brought with each of them into the house. They each bowed low before him with their faces to the ground. He asked them how the family was doing, saying, "You mentioned your aging father. Is he still alive? Is he doing well?" "Yes," they replied. "Our father, your servant, is still alive and doing well." And they bowed low before Joseph in respect. Looking them over, he saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said to them, So I see you have returned with your youngest brother, of whom you spoke. God be gracious to you, my son." Joseph hastily left the room, for he was overwhelmed with feelings of love for his brother and on the verge of tears. He went into a private room and sobbed as tears ran down his cheeks. When he finally composed himself, he washed his face, reappeared, and ordered, "Serve the meal." First they served Joseph, who was seated apart from his brothers, then the brothers by themselves, and the Egyptians by themselves. It would have been utterly offensive for the Egyptians to eat at the same table with the Hebrews. Now the brothers had been seated before Joseph in their birth order, from the firstborn at one end of the table to the youngest at the other end. They were all stunned when they realized the seating arrangement and looked at each other in astonishment. 11 plates of food were taken from Joseph's table and set in front of each of them, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times more than any of theirs. They feasted and drank their fill with Joseph until they all became drunk. Chapter 44. Joseph tests his brothers. Joseph ordered his chief servant, "Fill the men's sacks with grain, with as much as they can hold, and put each one's money back in the mouth of his bag. As for the youngest one, place my silver goblet in the mouth of the sack, along with the money he paid for his grain." And he did as Joseph said. At dawn, the men loaded their donkeys and set off for home. They hadn't gone far outside of the city when Joseph said to the chief servant, "Now, go at once and pursue the men. And when you catch up to them, say to them, 'Why did you repay good with evil? Why have you stolen the silver goblet from which my master drinks, and the one he uses to discover secrets hidden from men? You have done an evil thing.'" When the chief servant caught up with them, he repeated his master's words to them. They answered him, "Why does my lord accuse us of such things? Far be it from your servants to do anything of the kind. Didn't we return from Canaan with the money we found in our grain sacks? Why then would we steal silver or gold from your house, from the house of your lord? Look for yourselves. If any of your servants is found to have it, then he will die, and the rest of us will become your master's slaves." "Very well then," Joseph's servant replied, "as you have said, but I will show you leniency. The one who has it will be my slave, but the rest of you will go free." Each one quickly lowered his bag to the ground and opened it. Then the chief servant searched each bag, beginning with oldest and ending with the youngest. And he found the silver goblet in Benjamin's bag. Aghast, the brothers ripped their clothes in despair. They all loaded their donkeys again and returned to the city. Joseph was waiting in his house when Judah and his brothers arrived. When they saw Joseph, they all fell to the ground before him. Joseph said to them, "What have you done? Don't you know that divination would have given insight to a man like me?" Judah replied, "What can we say, my lord? How can we plead our case? How can we prove our innocence? God has revealed the guilt of your servants, and here we are, our Lord's slaves, both we and the one in whose sack the silver goblet was found." "No," Joseph commanded. "Only the one who stole my silver goblet will be my slave. The rest of you will go on home in peace to your father." Judah pleads for Benjamin. Then Judah stepped forward and offered, "My lord, please, may I have a word with you? You are the equal of Pharaoh. Please don't be angry with me, your servant." My lord asked his servants, "Do you have a father or any brother?" We answered, "My lord, we have an aged father and our youngest brother, who is a child of his old age. The child's full brother is dead, so now he is the only child left of his mother, and his father loves him very much. Then you said to your servants, 'Bring him here to me, so that I might see him myself.' We said to my lord, 'But he cannot leave his father. If he were to leave him, his father would die.' Then you said to your servants, 'You will not see my face again if I do not see your youngest brother.' When we arrived home to your servant, my father, we told him every word you had spoken to us. Some time later, our father said to us, 'Go back and buy some more food for us.' We answered, 'We can only return to Egypt if we take our youngest brother with us. We won't see the man's face again if he doesn't see our youngest brother.' Then your servant, my father, said to us, 'You know that my wife Rachel only gave me 2 sons. One is gone from me, torn by a beast. I haven't seen him since. If you take this one also from me, and something happens to him, you will send my gray hairs in grief down to the grave.' Judah continued, 'My lord, if I went to be your servant, my father, without the boy. If I went to your servant, my father, without the boy, and he saw that the boy was not with us, he would die. His very life is wrapped up in the life of the boy. Now, he is so old that the grief of his loss would kill him. Furthermore, I, your servant, have guaranteed the boy's safety to my father. I told him, if I don't return the boy back to you, I will bear the blame before you, my father, for the rest of my life. So please, let me take the place of the boy, and I will remain here as a slave to you, my lord. Please let the boy go back with his brothers. How could I return to my father without the boy? I don't want to witness the woe and grief that would overtake my father."
And that is Genesis 42, 43, and 44. Bye. Have a great day. Bye.